So this is session 2 of 2 for Legacy, Life Among the Ruins, second edition, written by James Ellis. And once again, I will start out by apologizing to James for me bastardizing your game during the course of these next 2.5 hours. So my apologies. Last session, we did a good deal of the world building and family building and character building. This is a game that has a rich set of those procedures for a PbtA game. I think it's richer than a lot of them because we've got sort of 2 characters that you're building, and as well you're building the world in the process of that, because it's a very open setting. And we've got a sort of biotech post-apocalyptic, and post-apocalyptic in the sense that we are generations after a fall. Most of the tech is biotech, and we've got some very interesting families here and characters on the table. So, Stephen, if I could have you start by telling us about your family and who you are within that family.
Sure. I'm playing Malachi Byrne. And Malachi basically is male, grimy. He's kind of, he's a scavenger playbook. And he runs around collecting things and gathering things up. And he tends to have enough things in his pockets and stuff to usually come up with just enough food to eat, just enough to get by, that kind of thing. And can usually, rig up something in order to get close enough to get maybe a big weapon, maybe a big shield, maybe something to transport, something like that. Those are the 2 moves that I have. The family that I come from is the Enclave of the Bygone Lore. And we are able to, we kind of have a menagerie of animals. And they do tasks for us. So Malachi actually has some companions. They're little bioorganisms that kind of crawl around under his robes and under his clothing. And then we'll come out and do things, gather things for him and things like that. And the family basically has some domesticated animals, and they have raided one of the local, I guess before the fall, it was a biotech firm or something like that. They've raided the labs and gotten stuff out of there.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And I'm also, I've dropped the links for various things in the folder. We've got a map in there, which let me see if I can very quickly screen share for those watching at home. I'll give you a brief look at that. You can see all of us are master artisans. So we're all really good. We know how to use little shapes tools. By the way, it's all much better than I would have done. So just for anyone at home, you can see that. Maria, could you tell us about your family and your character?
My character is the Painless. She is the leader of the Hell Swords. She is a sentinel, so her goal is to make sure the family is safe. The villages as well, but the family, which is the Hell Swords, which are the Tyrant Kings. They are known for having huge bioweapons, and they rule over the villages with an iron fist, but they're not completely evil, I imagine.
That's what they tell themselves, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
But a tight-knit sort of inner family, and then this more loose a set of villages that are overseen by them out sort of in the lands, right?
Yeah. Okay. And because I'm the leader, I am trying to seek sanctuary for my family because the Deathless Legion is coming. So
very true.
Yeah. So when we resolve that, I will say where they'll be safe, and you'll tell me what's in my way.
Awesome. Let's go to Christo. Christo, could you tell us about your character and your very strange family?
Okay, why don't I start with the family? So the family are the the Fool's Mirror, which is the playbook of the Eternal Masquerade. And what they do is they're artists. So they're nomadic, they go from town to town, and they are dancers. And I'll have to find the link to a Pinterest, what do we call it, deck that I put together that has images that I think reflect one of their, let's say it's one of their seasonal themes. It's the theme that they're using now in their dances, how they do their costumes. Because the way we describe them doing their costumes is that they basically tack on biotech to themselves to change the way they look. So even though the dolls that I was picking out are all very elongated, they actually themselves are the usual human sizes. They just are tacking on these appendages to make themselves larger and larger than life, and grotesque, I guess is probably a good way to describe it. And they use that in their dances to show certain imagery that they want to convey. Because they're all about, I'm trying to find it in here, they're all about, what was it? Showing like rulers, being the fools to the rulers and showing the cultures what's really going on, in fact. As far as the character I'm playing right now, the character, I changed their name. Their name is Lee the Nameless. I think that fits it a little bit better. And Lee will be young, and therefore that's why in this troupe they're nameless. They haven't done anything really to merit having a stage name, if you will, other than the Nameless. The moves that they have are social stealth, so they can blend into a crowd very well. But then on the flip side, they also have the anarchist cookbook, so they can, if they have the chemicals available, they can cook something that will basically set a city block on fire. So a force to be reckoned with. And that's from the playbook Firebrand, so it makes sense that they can play with fire.
Now, this is something that occurred to me just as you were talking there. We have dancers. What's the music like?
That's a really good question, because I'm picturing it a lot of percussion.
Okay.
And so if we're going with the biotech theme, I would picture it being percussion and strings.
Biotech percussion. All right, I want to think about what that looks like.
Because you think about it, you could use skins to do drums. You could be pulling them, and that's very doable with biotech. And then strings on violins historically have been from Kickstarter. So,
well, I imagine biotech drums that could self-adjust themselves, like timpani and things like that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Interesting. All right, thank you very much. Finally, Sherry, could you please tell us about your family and Jane Doe?
My family, who are the servant of the one true faith, they believe that the human genetic code must be preserved. They maintain a bank of essentially an averaged set of genetic code and they test the others to see if they have varied too far from it. Because of the freedom with the biotech, it is far too easy for people to move past the pale, and they have to be brought back to the truth. And of course, the way that we sort of enforce that and make ourselves important is that we are the ones who can heal someone who is close to death. But when we do, they become one of us. They look like the averaged. And though that has slowly changed over time, we still preserve the older averages. And as you raise in rank, you get to be rebuilt as someone closer to the oldest DNA that we have. Let's see, my actual character, who is Jane of the Doe, was actually originally named Avarice Coin. She was one of the merchant families. She was near death when she was healed, And as with all of the people who are healed, after a little while, she eventually traveled and went to the faith because she didn't belong anywhere else, and she had to understand and figure out how to unlock the mysteries of her genetics. And let's see here. And she's a survivor. She was attacked by the Deathless Horde. She and a group of the other doe. She was a sole survivor. It's made her a lot more hard-edged than the other doe, and super, super determined, which is why she's out and about instead of with her others. Is that good?
That is perfect. No, that is very, very good. So now each playbook has a set of backstory questions. The backstories there say everyone takes turn to introduce their characters, which we've just done. On your turn, you're going to ask a volunteer for at least one. And I think I'd like to let me see how I want to do this. I think I do want to have people do all of their questions when we come to their turn. I think it's easiest rather than going and circling around a couple of times. That's usually been a little more effective and efficient. Stephen, are you good if I ask you to start out that process?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so then let's go ahead and have you do your backstory again. Typical thing here now is these aren't mechanical things. These are purely fictional things. Stephen will put something out there he might suggest, or people can volunteer to be connected to that particular line. What is your role within your family again, Stephen?
Outsider.
Outsider. Okay, just want to make sure on that. Okay.
And the text with that role is: mark when your horde starts whispering to you. The GM says what it wants you to do.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's start with my backstory. Blank shares my lust for discovery.
Mm.
Does anyone have a suggestion?
I think since I'm trying to get my people away from the Deathless Legion, I can fit that, or we can go with Lee. I think either or.
I'm missing names. Lee is Christo.
Chris.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Is that good with you, Christo?
Yeah. So
okay.
The lust for its curiosity is taking over. Is that the idea?
Yeah.
Exploration, discovery.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, that'll work.
Okay.
My next one is blank is why I came back to civilization. I think so. In the last session, I remember that Malachi and Jane had worked together, and Jane had needed some technology for the body bank kind of things, for the healing stuff. So I was thinking that maybe that would be a good one for Jane.
Okay. Are you good with that?
Okay.
Yes, I am nodding emphatically.
Okay.
That would be perfect.
And the final one has blank has much to learn about life in the wasteland.
Which should be me. Which
Yep.
I'm not sure if it fits, but I'll take it.
Okay.
Okay. Well, what do you think the context for that would be then?
Well,
so from my perspective, I think so this is what I've gotten so far. From my perspective, I think learning about the world, learning about the creatures and the biology within it seems to be key to survival for the Enclave. I see painless as the way to survive in the world is with power.
Okay.
How does that sound?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I could tie it to one of my backstory questions, which is blank helped me get out of a siege alive. So I could just add Malachi to that, if you're okay with it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool. I will do so right now.
Okay.
And we'll pop over then to Maria's.
All right. And then I have sworn to protect blank, and blank and I stood stood watch together against the chaos. So I think Jane and I stood watch together against the chaos being the Legion. So, and then I have sworn to protect Lee. And Crystal, you can help me figure why out, if if that's okay. You made
Sure.
okay.
Why specifically Lee is protecting you or Lee's family?
I'm protecting Lee
Oh, you're protecting Lee.
specifically.
Because he's always getting into trouble? Or they're always getting into trouble, I should say. Lee's indeterminate,
Yeah.
so...
Yeah, maybe. That's a simple answer.
How did you guys meet? What's the connection there?
Well, I think it was established last session that the young Hell Swords go to the masquerade to uh because they kind of want to join. I think it's like Lee can get into trouble with the young Hell Sword, so I'm like, okay, no. Let's not get into trouble.
Okay, does that work for you?
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Okay.
And my thing is leader, which I explained earlier.
Mm-hmm.
My role. I mean.
Perfect. Awesome. Lee, let's talk to you about your backstory questions here. And you are the firebrand.
Mm-hmm. I'll start with a hard one, and we'll see who can come up with a good story for it.
Okay.
Blank has grown fat on the backs of others' labor.
I'll take that. I think that Malachi basically depends, and his whole family depend on creatures to do work for them instead of doing a lot of work themselves. They spend all of their time finding things to help them be lazy. Yeah.
Right. They don't want to do that. That's what machines are for, right? Tools, machines.
Interesting.
Okay. And let's see the others. I respect Blank's concern for others. So who has concern for others? Because I was thinking about this and I'm not sure that Jane really does, or does Jane have concern for others? I guess it's always concerned about what we're doing to ourselves.
Well, no, I suppose that because she was, she lost all of her fellows from the death list, that she does hold that concern for others of her family and the others that she knows and are familiar with. I mean, in that sense. But, you know, I'm fine with teaching you to understand the new world too, because it's pretty brutal. Either one.
And also, I think the painless might also work because she is concerned with, even though she's concerned with her own family, she still has your back specifically. So
well, I was thinking that Painless can teach me to understand this new world because, on the one hand, Painless is a warrior, you know, and seems to be looking out for me a lot. So there's sort of that connection already. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Something we could explore.
Yeah.
And I like that because it is a little bit interesting tangents on those from what you might expect. Mm-hmm. I didn't, that was not the layout of those that I expected from you when I looked at those. None of them were the ones I expected. So that's awesome.
Oh, does that mean I mucked up your NPCs?
No, not at all. No.
Good.
Play to see what happens. That's what you do, right? Okay. All right, so that's all three of those. And then, Sherry, you are a survivor, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
So
let's look at backstory.
I'm thinking that, let's see here. I like the idea. It says, I saved someone from certain death. I like the idea that actually Malachi was coming to join us. And actually Painless and I were able to essentially divert something that would have killed him, if that makes any sense, because we were waiting for him, and we're able to so essentially that I saved Malachi from certain death. Not that he knows about it, not that we've said anything.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, and it makes sense that we haven't said anything about it because
Exactly.
Malachi still thinks that I have much to learn about the life in the wasteland.
And let's see here. I like the idea that I think that Lee will need my help to survive, because he's pushing the boundaries and he's going to go too far. So does that make sense?
And by boundaries, are you talking sort of
all of them?
All of them. Okay.
Yes, that works.
Yeah.
That works. I'm beginning to see the theme that everybody's going to be pulling Lee's ass out of the fire.
And hopefully one day Lee will too. So there you go.
Next
And
stage, probably.
Yeah. And then I think Painless reminds me of someone I lost long ago.
Okay.
And what's the context for that?
I think that back before I became Doe, I knew someone who walked and talked and said the things and paused the ways that Painless does. And it's not entirely something that I can explain why the memory is so strong, just that I know that she reminds me of, my older cousin's first lover, and that I only kind of knew when I was a child, knew about when I was a child. So it's a sort of a feeling thing.
Awesome. Now we have one last thing to do on the sheet, and that is there's a gear pick on your sheet. So it says that you can add one to your armory rating when picking your gear. So let's look. Are those are distinct across our character sheets, I believe. Here, let me look at.
Yeah, I get a +1 to outfit.
Okay. Yeah, and so does the scavenger. Both get +1 on those.
So I have a quick question. Jane,
Yeah.
did you have some ability to heal, some kind of healing thing? Like a move?
Yeah, I do actually. I had originally chosen like Inquisition or something for, I think I'm going to take the sacrifice one, which means that in the heat of the moment, oh, dang it. Super moves. There's a difference between, there's the one thing where I can heal wound for wound. I take the wound, I take the death, I take the scarring or the whatever.
Okay. So one of the family moves that I took last time we had talked about was sufficiently advanced, which I had medical treatments. But I think I'm going to change that to a vehicle that can swiftly transport a dozen people or so from horizon to horizon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I don't see anything highlighted in the sheet, so I think I'm good.
What is that? I mean, in Horizon to Horizon, is it ground vehicles? Is it flying vehicle? What are we talking here?
So what this is actually some flying creatures. I imagine them winged creatures, almost like winged reptiles that we have like a pin, and you can jump on the back of those and fly from location to location.
Okay. And is it one big, or do you have a gaggle of those?
They can only carry one rider at a time, so there's probably half a dozen, plus some younglings.
All right. And is there anything I should know about your gear outfit, Maria, for Painless?
I I think I'm gonna have plate armor and the sword.
Okay.
Soul edge.
Soul edge. Okay.
Pretty much.
And what about for Lee?
So we're looking at the outfit in the family moves, right? Is that where it is? Because as far as the gear goes, I only get +1 intel.
Okay. And I believe then, I think you can kind of, let me look at the playbook here, how it describes that. We are Firebrand. And it says gear, you add 1 intel. Let's see what it says. It doesn't say anything else about equipment, so I don't think there's another pick you need to do on that.
Okay, that's easy.
Okay. Is there anything on your sheet, Sherry, for gear?
It says, add 1 to my armory rating when picking my gear. Say who it used to belong to and why you took it from their body. Let's see here. So I don't know what that means, except that I can choose a weapon, I guess.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Okay. Well, I think what I'm going to do is, it says I can pick 1 to 3 tags for my weapons, and add a tag to the list when you raise armory or arsenal. And I was thinking maybe I picked up one of the things that the Deathless use, and essentially I have essentially a stun gun, essentially the basics of. I mean, it's some sort of Deathless tech. Okay.
So the Deathless use a stun gun. That's interesting. Why do you suppose they use a stun gun?
Well, what they use is a paralysis thing, and
Okay.
it works really well on their resurrected corpses or, stood up corpses. But on live things, it just will stun them for a short time.
Okay.
Whatever it is. Does that make any sense? And how does it work? I assume that it's a jolt. It's a chemical, like biochemical jolt of some sort.
So non-lethal. What other couple tags do you want on that? We'll say, is it ranged? Okay, so
Yeah.
ranged. Non-lethal. You can get up to a couple others there.
Oh, really? Well,
yeah.
Geez. How about, let's see here, quick reload or quick recharge?
So like many would be the way to do that, because it means if you use it up, you have others at hand.
Okay, many. And what other things sound like they would work for that?
Ooh. Silent.
I like that. That makes me happy.
Okay.
Lower. So I picked the tags for my outfit, armory, and companions, actually, because I do have points in companions.
Okay.
So I have plate armor, which is utility and armor plated. My sword, which is melee, brutal, and aberrant.
Okay.
And the raiders have quality +2 because I believe quality begins at +1, I believe, and then it gets another point because I have 2 points in companions. And then specialty is combat because they're hell swords. So yeah.
Okay. And so did you have points in anything besides armory from your family, Sherry?
Let's see. I have points in intel. It says I get 1 data per point when I use research. I have no idea what that means.
Okay.
So that's my own fault. And I have 3 points of companions.
Okay. So you should, under the reference sheet, you can pick some stuff for your companions, which can increase their quality, and talks about their specialties there. it's on the reference sheet.
Reference sheet. Okay.
Page 4 of that.
All right. I will go and take a look. Oh, I see. Okay, there's gear moves too. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's awesome beyond belief. And I apologize for not having noticed this page earlier. I think I had it turned over the wrong way.
Yeah, and there is a revision to the gear stuff, but I'm playing with the 1.5.1 version of that.
All right. And I had originally, my family had a point in vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
And I had taken air, but if he's got a fast way of moving, that kind of makes sense for. Are these things that we use in the game, or is this just backstory?
You can use them in the game, yeah.
Okay. Then I think.
And the followers thing, the companions thing, is essentially the move for that typically is sending them out to do something. And when they're doing a task within their specialty, essentially there's a move for that.
Okay. And I think that what my intent was with my character, with my companions, was that I only looked at it as having two groups, but one of them were high quality, I don't know, I want to call them crafters or artisans of a sort. But what they do is they create the gear that we need to do the averaging, the genetic averaging healing.
Okay.
So that's essentially what they provide.
All right. And the other one?
Are just recruits. They are people that are there to assist.
Okay.
They're learning.
And let me come back since we're getting this out. I'm still trying to figure because it's across a couple of sheets here. Stephen for Malachi vehicles, and is there anything else that he has ranks in on the gear stuff?
He does. So my gear was to add one to my outfits. In outfits, I'm going to. So let me start with companions. Companions, I think we talked about last time about having little biotech creatures that kind of search and gather things as my companion. So they're going to go out and get information or find things, that kind of stuff. A lot of the things that I think I picture here are kind of related to that. So under outfits, I took mantle and communication or comms. So mantle, I think the in-game effect is it provides defend +1 aura to me and anyone within arm's reach. And I think what this looks like is the little biotech creatures swarm and kind of pulse out a little bit, and that's the armor that we're seeing.
Okay.
And the communication, I think this is them traveling back and forth between other people, so they can, carry a little bit of information, maybe an image that they can transmit to a person, and some words, things like that.
That sounds good to me.
Yep.
And Christo, let's come back to you. Since earlier I said, oh, no, you don't have to choose anything. And then I'm making you choose things. What do you have ranks in of the gear things?
The only thing I have a rank in is companions.
Okay. Okay, so you got the intel. And how many ranks do you have in companions?
Just one.
Just one?
Mm-hmm. So it creates a group with a specialty or increases a group's quality by 1.
Okay.
So I guess specialty of my group. First thing that came to mind was that I could control a band of urchins.
Okay. Is that hard knock life for them?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. And let me show you Masquerade. So you have 1 dot companions, 1 dot in intel, yeah, and Firebrand just gave you another 1 to intel.
Did it?
When you use research. Okay. All right. I see what that does. Okay. All right.
Can I ask a question, though?
Yes.
I do. Stephen asked an important question. He goes, "Do you have healing?" And my thing was, I was looking at the inheritance ability on the servants page. Is that something that you just get, like the quick characters get to pick one, or not? Because otherwise, I have no way to give myself the healing that I'm describing.
Let me take a look here.
Okay.
Sorry, if you want to mute yourself real quick.
Yeah.
Well, when you under companions, it says when you raise companions. Is that under orders, or is there a separate move I'm not seeing for raising companions?
A second, hang on.
So in the text that I see, Christo, it says when you raise companions. It also says when you raise vehicles. You can either create a new type of vehicle or something like that. I think that's whenever you add a point in it. You can either create a new vehicle or you can upgrade its quality or something like that. That's my guess.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
Cool, then that's easy if there's no rules involved. Or we've already made the rule, and that's why we get to raise them.
Krista, I think you have 2 points in companions according to your character sheet.
Yeah, no, that's what
Oh, I thought
Paul
you
was
were.
saying. So that means
Yeah.
Right. So I have a band of urchins, and no, I have
And
2
you get
points of intel. You think I got a? Why did you think I had 2 companions?
Well, because I see it in your character sheet,
Let me
and also
yeah.
because I have 4 points in my character sheet total, and you also have 4 points total in your character sheet. So I don't think it's wrong.
Mhm. Okay, let me check. Unfortunately, I have to dig around to find it.
In your family sheet, I mean.
Okay.
So yeah.
I don't see anything that's adding to companions. Where do you see it on the character sheet? You mean on the 5-branch sheet or on the family?
On the Fool's Mirror, on the family sheet. Sorry. It's on companions. There's 2 boxes checked instead of 1.
The printout I have has only 1.
Oh, I'm thinking it's because yeah, you have luxuries, which is one of your surpluses, which gives you more companions.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So look at your family sheet and you see where it says surpluses. That gives you more companions, and that's why you have 2 companions, not 1.
Okay.
Oh yeah, under resources, start with 1 point intel and companions, and pick 2 surpluses and increase those assets accordingly.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you can just make the merchants better at what they do. That's pretty
Not
much what I do
merchants,
with my
urchins, right? So
Urchins.
I've got a band of little kids.
Oh, urchins. I thought you said merchants. I'm sorry.
So I can increase their quality by 1. So I guess that makes
Yes.
them a quality 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that. I have high
What do your
quality
urchins do?
I think they're the scouts.
Okay.
Okay.
Are they mean urchins, or are they a friendly face?
They're friendly, because if we're going into it depends what we're doing when we're going into a town, right? So if they're going in, they could be the advertisement. They could be running around saying that the dancers are coming.
My dad is calling again. Give me 1 sec.
No problem.
So apart from that, we still have to do the roll backstory part.
We've already done the backstory part, right?
The role part, I mean, of the backstory.
The role part?
Like the GM still has to say what, for example, for Malachi, the Lowell still has to tell Malachi like what the Horde wants to do, or wants Malachi to do, for example.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
So there's this whole trend in the later or the newer Powered by the Apocalypse games that there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
So this is true of the Sprawl and Legacy and all of that. There's a lot of additional things. It's interesting.
I don't know. I think the Sprawl is doesn't have as many moving parts as this one.
I've never engaged the cyber hacking stuff of the Sprawl.
I was in the game at a con and Hamish was running it, and Dylan was playing. Actually, he was playing the hacker, and it worked really well. I was surprised. I kept thinking that it would slow everything down, but it didn't slow anything down at all.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it works really well. I was surprised. But of course, he's the designer, so he makes everything flow just like the way it should, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Hello.
Sorry, my dad is at the sort of the late stages of himself, and he just flew back down to Florida, which has discombobulated him. And so he has called me, and I gave him a number, and then he called me back and said, "Is this the number?" I'm like, "No, it is entirely not the number that I just spent a minute telling you." So he may call back again. I'm going to apologize right now.
No problem.
Has Maria fixed all of the problems with gear for all of us now?
Hopefully. I mean,
Okay.
this is why I'm like, are we really sure we want to stick with 1.5 gear?
Yeah, I did that because I'd already printed out the stuff and I'd already headed that way. So I will probably regret that in the long run, but we will see about that then.
All right.
Ooh. So anyway, what I want to do here is I think we're going to take our 5-minute break here so I can re-coordinate myself. There's also a chance my dad will call again. And then we will come back and I'm going to ask, and we're going to try and, with some leading questions and things, set us up on stage, the four of you together, doing something and playing that out, seeing what's happening, whether you're invested in a threat or there's something going on in terms of a ceremony or what. We'll figure that out when we come back. Let's take 5, and we will be back.
And no, the
Yes.
role questions that we need to answer, like the Horde that speaks to Malachi, where I'm taking my family to safety, and those we still need to do.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I did from the rules. I didn't quite get that you still asked the questions. I thought they were that the checks were just made and not asked after that. Okay, well that's a little unclear, but yeah. Okay, we'll get those when we come back.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Do we do those before we do anything, or does that just happen as we go into the roles?
Before we do anything, I think.
Oh.
Yeah, it's essentially there are those 4 roles, and you pick one at the start, and there is a question there. I assume that with the starting ones that we didn't answer those questions, but it looks like we do trigger one at character creation. So yeah, there must be the questions there. So we'll go through those and get that set. That may help us frame where we're starting.
Okay.
that is scavenger. So there's an odd thing that Sherry's a little annoyed with, that the servants of the true faith, on those inheritance moves that each family has, that if you made a quick character, you could take a healing move, but the actual servants don't have a healing move if you actually take a servant character. So she's less than gruntled about that.
Well, that's because she's above it all, right?
Right.
That's like the lowlies are doing the healing. That's the grunt work.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with her. It's weird that weird characters get that benefit, but not everyone else.
Yeah, it's very strange to me.
And how does that work? So we're in a situation where our character isn't.
So let's
Or
say
is
that
it
we
the other
were,
players are going to pick those up.
if the other player made a quick character for your faction, they could pick one of those inheritance things to kind of showcase who they are. And let me look at this. And I think they are different across the different factions. So they're unique to the different families. It's not like everybody has it, a generic set of those.
I think I took the quick characters pick one selection as a family move for some reason. So I'm glad you said something.
Yeah, no, you should.
Yeah.
You taking them from the lawgivers. Part of the problem is because of the way the sheet's laid out, that some of the first things you see. So you assume that
I thought it was defining the family. That
Right,
when you
because
chose one, you chose what their mode was.
Right, because it's right underneath the name.
Yeah. I'm so sorry, James.
It was my problem. I jumped to a strong sense of what I was going to do and then didn't look at what my options were. So is there a way that I can buy that with my investment? Is that what I buy companions for? Because we've got the whole idea that there's biotech. So they're specialists and they can create that.
You could certainly define your companions as medics if you wanted to.
Okay.
I think if one of your quick character, if one of your companions becomes a quick character, you can certainly do that. But for some reason, your main character can't, which is odd to me as well. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I think we do is generally you've defined your character as a medic in the fiction. So certainly you can act as a medic in the course of this.
Okay.
With the standard, you go to do it. If there's no challenge, you can do it kind of thing. All right. So I'm going to my rolling room. Stephen, let's talk. You've got there for Malachi and the outsider role. You've got a very interesting question there, and that is, what does your horde say it wants you to do? How do you imagine your horde talks to you? And when we say your horde, what is it that is doing this communicating?
So I think it's actually these bioengineered animals. I think that I took one as a weapon. I have the ones that are kind of the armor and the companions, that kind of thing. So I think this is just a whole group of like little critters or something like that. And maybe either the flying things back home may have an agenda, or these little biotech creatures may have an agenda and just be trying to communicate something across that way.
So the bio things, they speak to you, not in words, but in impressions and not even visuals, but things that take you a while to put together. And they are telling you that you have to be ready, that you have to be prepared, because the cleansing is coming.
Okay.
Have to be ready for that. There's not a sense of fear. There's not a sense of excitement. It's just that this is going to happen. You need to be ready.
I see. I think that, typically the way that the communication with these things work is they send back an image from someone, or they send back exact words from someone. So whenever they start giving impressions, it's like, oh, this must be on the fritz, and then multiple of them do it. Like, the cleansing, what's that? Is that a word that they've learned from someone?
That sounds good to me. I like that. And then let me come to the Sentinel, and you are the leader there of the Sentinels. So you've sought sanctuary, and I assume that when we say sanctuary here, we're talking about the Deathless Legion, or is there something else that you're seeking sanctuary against?
Yeah, the Deathless Legion. That's the biggest threat right now, I think.
So they've certainly come in. They're in the lands. They've started to move into those outer areas of the villages. And that's a difficult thing, because they are potentially going to start taking away from the crops and essentially the basis that keeps your society together.
And it says, say where they'll be safe, and the GM says what's in my way.
Yeah. So where do you think they'll be safe?
I think it's either the Suare Mesa or further east. I'm not entirely sure which one to pick. I think.
Yeah, which one do you want?
I think further east, outside the homeland, makes more sense because.
Okay. So, what lies in your way is the fact that traditionally that area has been off limits. That sort of culturally, people have been worried and afraid of it. And that there's a lot of biomechanical stuff that has done what they call amalgamation, where essentially loose biotech has gathered and formed into colonies. And they're animal-like, but they're big and dangerous.
Okay.
Okay, sound okay? Let's come to our firebrand. And let me look at yours. What did you choose as your role?
Agent.
Agent, okay. Who trusts, so you've infiltrated a group to bring it down. What group have you infiltrated to bring it down?
Oh, let's make it the Deathless Horde.
Okay. So you have infiltrated into that Deathless Horde. Who trusts you? Who is your sort of person that you've managed to convince that you are on their side?
Farragon, the leader's cook.
Gone. Leader's cook. Okay. And who mistrusts you?
The sous chef. No. Again, first thing that came to mind. We'll probably do better than that. Why don't we say the leader's partner?
Leader's
So that might be
partner.
Yeah, I think that's more interesting.
Okay. Male or female for the partner?
Let's make it male.
Okay.
We didn't define if the leader was male or female. So it's
okay.
Partner male.
So we'll call that person J a Forge.
Sure. J.O. Forge.
J a Forge, however we say it. It's all good. And why doesn't that person trust you? What have they seen that makes them suspicious of you?
I think they saw me adjusting some of the augmentation, the body mods.
Okay. All right. I'm going to come back to that. We're going to ask some questions about the Deathless Horde here. Well, we've got a couple of things connected to that, so I think we're going to drill down onto that a little bit here when we get done with these questions. And then Sherry, our survivor, right?
Yes.
What role did you choose?
I chose outsider.
Okay.
That means that I need to say what is missing in the family, and you tell me where I might find it.
Okay.
And I think that the thing that is missing in the family is probably going to be that they have no control or influence with the deathless. So how can we get control, or where can we find something that will let us make an impression on the deathless?
You need to figure out how they're doing that essentially that revivification, how they are preserving that genetics, and what's the process that they're using, what's the tech that they're using to do that. That once you know that, you may be able to see how that interacts with your family's own process. Okay. So let me start with you then, Sherry. Let's kind of do reverse order here. The Deathless, we know that they have some leaders. We know that they're massive. They have a huge force, and they've moved into these lands, the Deathless Legion. There was a suggestion last time, not that they were marching into this land, but that they were forced out of elsewhere. And that there's a reason that they moved in here. And their size, given what we've seen on the map, is they are larger than any single community, any single group here within the area that you're settled in.
I think it was the Thunder. I think it was the Thunder that was forced over here.
The Thunder are just random.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
That's cool. But you've got these two forces that are there, though operate very differently. The Thunder are those rhino people. They pop up, they raid weirdly. It's not clear what they want. The Deathless have moved in to here. So we know that they have these revivified people, that the corpses that fall, they use a mechanic to raise them up again. What's another defining feature about them? What else do we know about this Deathless Legion?
I think, wow, they have so many people that essentially they have so much cattle in the sense of those revivified people. They're into armies and stuff that have a lot of vehicles or any of the things that we would think with a large number of people moving or mounted things because they have just those things that can only walk. So they kind of move in a very slow mass, which is one of the reasons that they haven't devastated everything yet.
And I assume that in a way that those revivified people are also kind of pack animals as well in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, labor, yes.
Okay. Tell me, Chris, when we talk about these revivified people, these deathless that have been brought back, how articulated are they? How sophisticated are they? What kinds of zombies, to use the Z word, are they? Are there different kinds?
Well, let's see. We haven't talked about how they're brought back, have we?
No.
So we don't know. Does it involve healing, or if they had their, if they lost their head, they come back headless?
Can you tell me?
I want to say they come back like insects with a hive mind or a hive mentality.
Okay.
So they wouldn't have an intelligence necessarily that we would recognize, but they do seem to do things without communicating with each other.
Okay. So, and we described they've been controlled. So there's clearly a handler that can interact with these hive minds. With there are different handlers. They can handle a group.
Sure.
Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah. No. Otherwise, how would they be controlling them? That wouldn't make sense.
What do they look like when they come back?
Well, maybe we should play the opposite. Why don't we say they come back looking the best they've ever looked?
Okay. They look kind of pristine, like the cellular regeneration. They look like in fit health, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but so if was it if the family I'm blanking on Sherry's family, but so
The
if they
doe?
all come back, right, the does, if they all come back looking like Jane or John, then these ones probably come back looking more unique. Maybe some of their characteristics get exaggerated slightly.
Okay.
To make them more standing out. So they're very bright in many different ways.
Okay.
And that might be interesting to contrast the fact that they've got sort of a hive mind and yet they all look unique.
I like that. I like that very much. I like that, especially if if they're unique in appearance, but then they're both a hive mind and probably their handlers probably dress them similarly to keep track of them. So orange is the new black. All these uniforms, very different people.
Maybe it's like kindergartners with like different uniforms to keep them, or school children, so that they can tell them apart.
Okay, I like that. Maria, we've mentioned here a couple times. I think that you people have had already some military skirmishes with the Deathless, right?
Yes.
And that has not gone particularly well for you.
Right.
What happened? What is it that the Deathless have tactically or mechanically or technologically that has overcome you?
I think the regeneration process is just so quick that that even the strongest weapon that we have can't really deal with them.
And so your normal means of damaging, dispatching them just don't have the effect that you would want.
Correct.
And there was a siege that was mentioned. What was that? What did that look like?
All right. So remind me what the seed C was.
So, well, not the seed C, but you mentioned that you and Jane had
Yeah,
been in a siege together.
Yeah, that's what I was. That's what I was. That's why I was asking about the Seed Sea, because that's the closest thing to the
Oh,
Deathless Legion itself.
ah,
So
okay. Sorry, I thought my Hoosier accent had done that because
I'm
I mumble. No, Seed Sea. I
It
think.
was the closest thing that we have to a preserved building from before the fall. Not that it's preserved, but it's just sort of a really dangerous place for biotech anyway. You go in there and people die.
And there's big ribbons of black stuff. Those lines that are on there are big blocks of a kind of a sticky black stone that's there.
all right. I'm tempted to say that we were stuck there, and the Deathless Legion was pretty much like surrounding us, and that was the siege.
Okay.
Because we were on an expedition to scout ahead, and then we got trapped at the Seed Sea, and thankfully the Painless and Jane survived, but not many other people.
Okay. And of course, converted then.
Yeah.
Malachi, what is it that the Deathless seem to want here?
I think that the Deathless consume resources. So they enter an area, they they find bodies to reanimate and from the people that they conquer in order to swell the size of their army. But they also come in to find new foods. They're sort of like locusts moving from place to place.
Okay. So the Deathless are clearly the threat. They've moved through. They are moving forward in a regular pattern. Their troops regenerate rapidly. They have a sophisticated tech. Now, mind you, they don't move fast, but they are a slow pressing forward. The siege that occurred in the outlying villages came from like a first front force of the Deathless that moved out and then kind of fell back. And now they've done kind of settled, slow incremental movements forward, which has given you the various families time to try and figure out what's been going on. So with that in mind, we have, you know each other. You have encountered each other. You trust each other, at least moderately, for your skills. You know that each of you have the ability to get things done. And one of you has been in amongst the Deathless, and that is our good friend Lee. So Lee, you're the person who kind of has to come here and give them a goal or plan or something. So what is it that you need you four to do? Have you discovered a vulnerability? Is there a place that has a mystery you want to find out about that might lead to things? Is there a place you think you might strike at to slow them? Or is there something else? Let's put Chris absolutely on the startup, right on the.
So, what could I have learned from the cook, or from being close to the cook about Deathless? I imagine I've been figuring out how they control them.
Okay.
So, and it's through the cooking. Yeah, let's say it's through the cooking somehow. That it's a combination of the foods and the spices that the controllers eat it. And so that's what it is. Okay, so we need to steal the recipes.
Well, let's say this, that there's clearly something that they are using some unusual substance that they are using to create this. And it's, let's say it's a powder. We've said spice, so let's go the Dune route, and say that there is a spice that has to flow that they are getting from somewhere. So let's assume that you know that. Let's assume that the four of you have decided that you need to find out about that. Does that seem like a good framing for where we're at? So we'll assume that because you've been going back and forth to there, that we're somewhere, maybe even a place just outside the Sand Sea that that the four of you can meet, and certainly Malachi has a transport to allow you guys to get there and discuss. So that's where we frame you in. And what's this place like that you've kind of got for a shelter, Jane? What is this hidey hole that you've uncovered?
There's a thing of, because of that rock, not rock, the sticky stuff, is that when it rains, it doesn't go away or dissolve, and there's a lot of soil beneath it that has washed away over the years. And so that area is pockmarked with lots of, I don't know, I don't want to call them caves so much as sort of underground areas that have been cleared out that, I mean, you can just walk into, but they're all over the place. It's a really good place to hide around there.
Okay. So the four of you have met there. You know that Lee has been going back and forth. There is a central camp, and there are multiple subsidiary camps of these Deathless. They're organized kind of into groups and phalanxes with handlers and such. So we have a chance to talk, and maybe you can ask me questions, or we can establish some stuff about this, about what you might do to find out about this spice. So it's a very open question, but let me put that out on the table for you.
Well, can we say that Lee managed to steal some of the spice?
Yes. What does it look like?
I want to say it's crystalline.
Okay. So it's crystalline. It's has a pungent odor to it. What does it smell like, Maria? What's the scent that it has?
Thinking rot.
Okay. So despite this crystalline look to it, it has this rot smell. It's very odd. So it is pungent, and I mean, it has that maybe almost a candy-like look, and yet that smell to it. How would you guys proceed? What would be your next step? Having samples and these kinds of things.
I would ask Malachi if he has any idea if there's any, if he knows of any place, maybe in the wilds or the menagerie, where we can find, or probably the wild, since that's the closest to the Legion, but a place where we might find the source of this substance.
So we can go looking for more. We can send out scouts looking, and we can do research to see if we can't find something about this from before the fall.
Mm-hmm. So what would be your first step with this?
Probably to send out scouts.
Okay.
See if they have ever seen anything like this before.
All right. And you have scouts amongst your people, or somebody else?
These are the critters. These are
Okay.
the I think that's right, companions. Yeah.
Okay. So you gather them together. You've got a sample of this, and we're going to roll. And what's the quality of your scouts?
1.
1. Okay. So you're going to roll with a +1.
Okay. And that makes it a 6.
Okay. So the bad news is you don't get to mark experience because that game doesn't use that. So you will send these scouts out, and they will head out into the lands to go through, and you have some kind of impressionistic communication with them at a distance.
I think they travel back, and there's report periodically.
Okay. Then probably what you will get is a straggling handful of them returning. Essentially, they give an impression of some kind of defense, some kind of biological defense that was in the air around the place, like monitor things. The bits and pieces you can put together are that they had like jellyfish in the air, almost like sort of weather balloons that are really hard to see at a distance. And those things, as soon as the critters came into the area, started grabbing them up.
It kind of swarmed in on them.
Yeah, and the ones that returned here, you're going to have to put them in the growth vats for a while to restore them back to safety there.
Okay.
Let's come to Painless. How would you approach this situation?
Would I know the information that Malachi received from?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the general thing we always do for this is that previous scene information is in your hands.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that is still the case.
Perfect.
I would like to push for an expedition. Basically a small, get my companions, get everyone else, march towards the area and take out those jellyfish and deal with it ourselves, because clearly the scouts are not fighters, so they can't really fight jellyfish that seem to grab them and attack on sight. So
Okay.
It might be helpful if we could move the jellyfish towards the Deathless.
I have a feeling that the Deathless are the ones who put the jellyfish there to begin with. So
It does definitely seem like that's the bioweapon that they're using there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So your intent is to get your people together, head out, and try to assault to take control of those jellyfish and neutralize them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, by the way, if I do so, I get to mark agent.
Okay.
Because mark and hold 1 when you guard an expedition. I mean, I would lead the expedition, maybe not guard it.
Yeah, I don't think that necessarily
Okay.
Fits on that.
Okay, that makes sense.
So one of the things is what's the appropriate weapon here? We've got troops that are arrayed on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
We've got these jellyfish that are clearly being used sort of as weather balloon defenses in the area. And feel free to consult with your companions in this, but what's the appropriate weapon that you have access to deal with those jellyfish?
Probably a mass area weapon. which I don't personally have, but the base probably has it. And uh, do do we know like, have you seen these jellyfish before to know like any weaknesses or
No, these are a new thing. These that you've encountered, but you could certainly maybe try and figure out how to find out things about them.
I think I'm just gonna do trial and error and try to use piercing weapons against them first because they are balloon-like.
Okay. All right. So you're going in without appropriate information to the situation. So just giving you that as the frame for the potential hard moves and stuff. Okay.
All right.
Is it just you, or is it you and your companions? What are we seeing?
I guess
I think
the companions are.
Lee will be on board with this. Lee will be like, "Yes, that's excellent. Let's do this." Uh-oh. Are you still there? I think I'm going to lose the connection. Let's do this. I love it when we don't have a clear plan.
So I'm guessing Lee's there.
Okay.
And Lee and my companions are gonna help carry the big guns, so to speak.
Okay.
The area weapons to get rid of the jellyfish.
All right. Let me ask you, once this plan has come, I'm going to ask now Jane. Jane, where are you during this particular operation?
Wow. I am watching with a certain amount of horror. Let's see here. I would think that if these are jellyfish things, that we might be able to use things like weather or coming in like under their senses would be the thing that I would be more interested in. So it would be, I would have gone to it by sort of probing their senses, finding out what they sense and what they don't sense, and seeing if we could come up with something like a tarp or something that would protect us, or waiting until it's raining or something like that, trying those sorts of things.
Okay.
So
it seems to me that kind of what you're talking about is
scouting.
trying to scouting and supporting on what she's preparing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Does it seem like, because she's doing a risky thing, that Painless is doing that, we might do a lore move for you to make that less risky?
Yes, that I would love to do that.
So that'd be a diffuse.
Okay.
Okay.
Diffuse. Okay.
Yeah. So you're going to roll with lore.
All righty.
Okay. And then we're going to roll that into the Fiercely Assault move from Painless.
All right.
Good. I wanted someone else to roll lore because I am not good at lore. So
Okay.
Well, I have a 1 in it, and I rolled a 9, so that gives me a 10 in lore to assist.
Okay. All right. So yes, you have, and Chris just popped out here. You have changed the situation. What is it that you've done to make the piercing assault thing? What have you found out that makes it easier to handle these jellyfish?
I've figured out that they're actually tied to certain small areas, like each little group of them is only in charge of one little cell of it, and they don't respond to things that happen in the other cells. So if we approach carefully and isolate our moves to go one of these little areas by one, we won't draw any more than like 5 or 6 of them. So they can try different methods.
That sounds good. All right. Now, Maria, this is you fiercely assaulting to try and drive away these jellyfish. Let us have you roll.
and that is a 6.
Ouch.
So Chris
Now.
could potentially help.
That's true. You could as well if you want to describe yourself as on the scene.
So how would Lee be helping?
Well, you would tell me that how because we have a call for aid. After failing to roll as well as you like, say what another character nearby can do to boost your efforts. And then okay, go on.
So I guess I would be the one who calls for aid.
Yeah, I'm cool. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems to me that's either way. You saying or I mean, are you asking for help? Does Painless ask for assistance in a military endeavor?
If it starts going wrong, I would
Oh, yeah,
basically bark orders. Yeah, but that's basically my way of asking for help. Is basically telling Lee and like giving orders to Lee and Jane to pretty much help.
Lee, when orders start getting barked at you, do you help?
Lee doesn't take that very well.
Well, do you want to leave?
So what does Lee do? Actually,
this is your brilliant idea. No, I'm going to do it my way.
All right.
So what was the order you barked?
Pretty much. So I'm thinking that the jellyfish are grabbing the weapons that we're using and breaking them. So it's like get those weapons away from the jellyfish.
So I think that I can potentially help. So Malachi is there. He's kind of got his bio creatures, back home in the vat. But he sees that there's several that, the jellyfish have already grabbed.
Uh-huh.
They're still partially operating. And, he tries to communicate with them. And that's how I'm going to help. So let's see, what kind of role would that be?
I think this is quick action here. Trying to react quickly. So roll steal.
Steal. Okay. That is a 9.
Okay. So you can boost up Painless's effects, but you're also going to suffer some of the fallout from it.
So I think that what the critters tell me is they tell me where there's kind of a blind side, where the jellyfish might not be able to see as well, or might not be able to, grab things or that kind of stuff. And that's the benefit that I give to.
Excellent. So Maria, looking at the Fiercely Assault move, what is it that happens there? You get to pick one.
I think what we're trying to do is get information, so I'll pick that one. Get information from our foes, so we get one data.
Okay, so while you don't disrupt the jellyfish as you would wish, you do learn about their movements, about their operations, things like that. So yeah, you definitely get one data on that.
Would it be my family or everyone? Since we're kind of doing this together.
I think since it's a character move, so it's just one data for you.
Okay. All right.
Now the GM chooses 2 off this list. So I think what happens is after you make this strike, I mean, very visibly come and attack, there is a definite reaction from the Deathless Legion, and they begin to march, and they begin to press forward. Within 12 hours, they've all pulled up camps, and they are pressing forward, marching at a rapid pace, clearly in response to the assault. And they'll start to, within a day or two, after you guys kind of fall back from that, the outlying villages will start to have to retreat or fall.
All right.
Okay. So what's our next scene after that, Jane? Where do we cut to after that happens? You have more data, but you've seen that the Deathless clearly have fought other places that clearly know some things, and they have kind of a standard operating procedure. When they are attacked, they respond like an antibody in some ways.
Yeah, and that's interesting, but not. That's. I think one of the things is that. Now, what is it that powder is purported to do? Is this what raises the dead, or is this what allows them to control the revivified?
I believe that Christo said that it is what allows them to control the revivified.
Right. I was going along with the ideas of like them having a hind mind and how ants react to pheromones and smells.
Right. Okay. So
the handlers were taking the spice, and then they could control the deathless.
Okay.
Okay, good. Thanks. I just wanted that clarified so I understood what it was that we were doing here. And then essentially we were heading to, and then the jellyfish were around an area where we thought that stuff was being.
No. So the Deathless Legion were, in their sort of camps, and they've been moving forward. And the Legion had these jellyfish sort of as aerial defenses that couldn't be seen very well. And now you've been able to spot where they are and activate them, and attempting to kind of disrupt them to cut out that line of defense for you seems to have made the Legion get up and go on the move. Exactly where the powder is produced or how is an open question right now.
Exactly. Okay. So then the only thing that we can try to do is to empty out those villages, but B, I mean, we need to help those people, but also since they're moving, we should know the territory better than they. Particularly if they're moving across the seed sea with all of those hollows and those odd spots in it. My hope is that what we can do is find a spot where we can get in there and hide, and then as they pass by and through, actually just work our way into the forces, much like Lee did, if he can help us to do that, come up behind and get the information that we need, or the supplies or the samples that we need, to essentially use that chance to get in there while they're in a sort of disarray.
I like that. That sounds interesting. Are you guys down with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think it's going to be a diffuse. Essentially, you're protecting the thing. Well, actually, let's see here. We've got a couple choices. We can either do this as a diffuse, where you're protecting the local villages, or it might be wasteland survival there, where we're rolling steel. Which do you think is appropriate there? I'm going to ask you, Sherry, what you would rather do.
Well, I was unpleasant, and I said two things when I was really supposed to say one, that I wanted to do these two things. So
I'm trying to disentangle those is what I'm trying to do.
Yes. I think that aspirationally I would like to help the villages, but I think
well, if you want to help the villages, we can do that as one thing, and perhaps that would provide advantage to the person who wanted to handle the sort of the wasteland survival part.
Okay. Alrighty.
Does that sound good?
Reasonable. Yes. So.
Yeah. So what is your method? Is this based on lore and info, or are you trying to do this with haste with steel, or persuasion with sway, or are you kind of pushing people out with force to get them moving?
I would be trying to diffuse the situation in the sense that I don't want them to be overrun. So I'm trying to essentially get them out of their villages with some control over their resources and on to the next place, so they don't become victims.
Sure. What's your methodology is what I'm asking.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm I'm a servant of the one true way. I guess I'm using sway. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't understand.
If you are talking, if it's about not like, kicking in their doors and saying get out, or doing something sneaky. If you're just talking, you can roll sway.
No, I'm moving fast. I mean, that's it. She's coming in, and but I guess you can't kick the. I don't know. You can't sustainably keep on kicking doors. That's the problem. So you kick some doors, and then someone has to believe you. So I guess it's sway.
Okay.
Sorry.
I took a long way around to get to that. Sorry, that's my fault.
Okay. All
Shaggy
right,
dog game.
Yeah, I'm part of it. So here we go. So I'm going to roll on sway, which means I'm just rolling two dice.
Okay.
And I got a 9 again.
All right. So they're going to be safe. You've bought some time, but you get to choose one. There's a cost. The danger will soon return. The danger's present, but now it's threatening something else.
I think there's the cost, and the cost is inherently that land's lost. I've moved the people off, but there's no getting that territory back from the legions in this time or thing. I mean, it will take the utter defeat of the deathless to get.
Does that seem cool to you, Painless?
Yeah. So so they basically moved to the villages.
Yeah. So essentially, the outer part of those villages are falling. You and your group are moving to get them out of the way, and then who is it among you who is finding the place for you four to hide out, to do your kind of infiltration? Who is appropriate for that? This is gonna be a wasteland survival roll.
Wait, so we're talking infiltrate?
Yeah, essentially, you're trying to find a place to get in behind enemy lines, such that when the Legion moves over, you can then move out and blend and maybe find out some information.
Be subterfuge, a family-based move.
Let me.
Can we do
Well,
that?
no. So right now,
Or-
this is about your sort of individual actions.
So if this is about finding, I'm sorry, Crystal, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What was your question?
I was going to say, if this is about knowing the lay of the land and knowing good places to hide or something like that, I think that Malachi might be good at that. Being able to scout out areas with his critters or know where they came from and things like that.
Okay. Can you roll steel for that?
I can. Maybe. That is an 8.
An 8.
And that's under Wasteland Survival?
That's under Wasteland Survival.
Okay.
So let me first ask, what is the hiding place that you find for the four of you?
So if I'm not mistaken, down at the bottom there's a river. Is that correct?
I believe so. That's a river down there running past the horrors.
Yeah.
So I think that there's actually sort of like an underground cave that you really can only enter through the river. So you can swim underneath the river, and there's like basically a little cave that you can't see from outside.
All right. What is the pick that you want on that Wasteland Survival roll? You can lose something along the way. Someone is hurt, or there is an obstacle or threat that is blocking your way back.
Well, the one that makes the most sense is the last one, in that, we had to enter through the river, so there's this obstacle, where as soon as we surface, we will be obvious to the Deathless Legion.
Okay. So I imagine that you four get into this cave. You wait out your time. Your little sensors can kind of tell when a little bit of time has passed, so that the Legion has moved into the area. And then you will go to move out. And Painless, this is sort of your bag. As you come out, kind of get moving back out, you will see that there is clearly something. There's kind of a shadow overhanging the water. There's clearly some kind of predator outside the cave. Like it's seen you go in a few days ago, or it smelled something. But much like a polar bear will stand over a hole in the ice for days, waiting for a seal to come up, there's something big up outside the cave, waiting to bring a paw down and crack someone's neck.
All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and tell everyone to wait back. And I'm gonna be the first one to pop in, sword in hand, and try to cleave that thing.
Okay. Describe to me what that's gonna look like here with you pushing out here.
So you said there's something big on the other side?
Yeah, you come up out of this river cave and you kind of swim up to get out, and there's a big thing. I mean, it's not a big jump up for you, so maybe a foot or two, and there's a thing up top waiting.
I am just gonna push my sword up and stab it.
Okay, so do that kind of leap push up out of the water, like Excalibur coming out of the lake to stab at this thing. All right, roll force.
All right. That is a 5 plus 3 plus 2, so 10.
10! Whoa! Look at that. Look at the Fiercely Assault list.
All right. Inflict savage, terrifying harm, frightening and dismaying our foes. And I will.
And it is like a big bear thing.
Yeah.
And it's got several sort of bio leeches that are on it that are kind of symbiotic that make it bigger. And you'll stab it. What's your other pick?
My other pick is scavenging something valuable. I gain a device.
Okay. So when you hit it, you knock free one of these bio like biosucker things. You get one of those knocked free. You know it's a useful thing. And let's see what I have to pick one then. Yeah, let's say you have armor, so let's deal harm appropriate to that. Let me quickly look at the typical weapon list.
I technically have 3 armor because I can adjust and repair my armor at camp, so I start with 3 armor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You are in awesome shape. Then I think essentially it'll do 3 harm. You've got 3 armor, so it probably knocks you flying. But you've leapt up and stabbed it, and you guys below, kind of waiting, will see the water go red from that as this thing then kind of slides out into the water and is huge thing. This sort of mammoth bear, mutant bear thing will be pulled by the river down. Sound good?
Yes, I'm glad that it's not painless, because then I would have to heal her, and that would hurt a lot.
So it's under cover of night. You've infiltrated behind the lines of the Deathless Legion. You've hidden in this cave. You've defeated this bear. Now, Lee, it is your time to shine.
Yeah, so Lee's going to use his social stealth move. When you blend in with a crowd, a dozen or more, you won't be recognized and will look unremarkable.
Okay. And there's no roll with that, is there?
It's hard for me to tell. It doesn't look like it.
No, it's automatic.
Yeah, just automatic. So now, do you want to move in by yourself and do something, or do you want to try and maneuver your allies with you, or how do you want to do this?
I think so. I think Lee wants to try and get the group in if possible, but that's going to be problematic because of the way that we're all very distinct and different.
Mhm.
Because the social stealth will only work with him unless
Well, it certainly
unless we make it look
means-
like we could say that you're all my prisoners.
Or we could get uniforms.
Do we determine if they have uniforms?
He
We
said
have
that
to-
they did. That essentially they were
Oh,
all
that's right.
unique, but they kept the cells in particular outfits.
True. Okay, yes. So then it's a matter of Lee going in and stealing the uniforms and coming back.
Okay. That seems to me, given that the move that you have there, it is not going to be a problem for you to do that. Where do you find these uniforms? And how do you find one that'll fit over Painless's armor?
Yeah.
Well, they come in all sizes because the Deathless are all different. And
Okay.
it's Lee is I'm an actor, so it's all a matter of a stitch here, a stitch there. We can make anything fit. So I imagine that the place that Lee would find they would find these would be in like a laundry wagon or something like that. If there's one trailing behind,
That makes sense to me.
A supply wagon. So however they do that.
All right, I'm going to say, because you've got that social move, and because you've taken the time in the fiction to get those, I'm going to let you roll sway, essentially to move your compadres in with you, and I'm going to give you advantage.
To do
What a generous GM. Look at that. Yeah, the categories.
There we go. Yeah, we know it's going to all the categories.
And
Okay,
it's advantage +1, or is it roll 3d6 and take the highest?
Roll 3d6 and take the highest, too.
3d6, yeah. Okay, so I just
And you have a sway of 1.
But that's not. Oh, it did work. Okay, cool. So what am I rolling though?
You're rolling diffuse, and
Diffuse.
you're rolling sway with diffuse. Diffuse is my go-to move in this game.
So I got an 8 on the dice. It was a 2, 4, and a 4.
Okay.
And so diffuse, sway. So what's my sway? Sorry. Flipping back. My sway is a 1. So that's a 9 on the dice then, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
That's not too bad. And
Now you
then
could
what does that get?
you could call for aid, or you could make a pick on the diffuse list.
Sure, that could be cool. So who would be able to help us sneak in? Who could it be that I've coached in the ways of being a dancer and actor?
I would like to point out that there are multiple Jane Does in the herd already.
This is true. This is very true.
Do you want to
So
try
Jane,
and
I think Jane could be the person that could help.
Okay. Jane, I think you're rolling sway.
Okay. Let's see here.
And
I'm doing this as a call for aid.
Yes.
I just keep rolling 9s, so I'm cool with that.
Okay. So describe to me, you two, what this looks like as you move grungy Malachi and a beplated Painless and yourselves through this encampment. The Deathless have stopped for the night. They don't move it after dark. Describe to me what that looks like, you two.
So, wait, the Deathless don't move after night? Or you mean
No,
they
they
don't?
stop moving it. They don't start moving at night. They stop moving at night.
So they're just all standing still?
No. They essentially.
Sorry, I had like this really creepy thing that they all just kind of.
That's
froze
actually perfect. That's actually perfect. Yes. The only people that move around at night are the controllers and things like that. The Deathless just stand there at night.
Okay.
Imagine just a field of mannequins.
Sorry,
Ooh.
guys.
I think that's almost too tempting at this point because the stress to like, are they standing like dominoes?
Yeah, probably some of them are.
That's like that's. I think Lee will probably turn to to Painless and say, isn't it just so tempting just to push one over and see how many of them fall?
No. If you're gonna
Oh,
do
come
that,
on! It'll be beautiful.
If you're
It will be
gonna
like
do
the best dance ever.
if you're gonna do that, you might as well set them on fire since you can do that. And that will actually get rid of them, maybe.
Well, we're going to a small section of them, yes.
Yes, exactly. If you want to get rid of them, don't do that. Just set them on fire like you usually do.
So now I'm supposed to listen to you after you messed up with the jellyfish because you're talking reason.
Lee?
And that's how the plan went all awry.
Lee? So could you kind of, just get us over to that next thing and then we can have our knockdown drag out argument on this, okay?
Yeah, no, okay. How about I think we want to go over to the cooking supply tents because that's where we'll get the spice that we need.
Perfect.
And I might be able to cook something else up there.
Yeah. Like if we can figure out how to poison them.
So what is your intent here? What you've infiltrated in here to the camp. What is it that you want to do? Is it to get a larger supply of the spice? Is it to find out where the spice comes from? Is it to cause chaos and mayhem?
I think this is Lee, so it's probably all of the above.
Okay.
So
well, then the thing to do is to get all the spice.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So no one has spice.
So
right, because Lee.
So essentially, what
I read somewhere that the merchants.
You want to find the spice, take those supplies such that they'll have to fall back or destroy their supply depot, which will essentially slow their advance and or force them to fall back for a while. Does that seem right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, what if we... But Lee's thinking out loud. What if we use the spice to make them attack each other? And that distracts them for enough time for me to make my use my anarchist cookbook and the cooking materials that are there to make a nice little firebomb to take out the rest of them or take out the handlers.
Sure, that works.
Does that make sense?
That does.
Yes.
So we've got. Okay, go ahead.
So I was going to say, I'll take care of the cooking, but I don't. But how we get the. How you all use the spice, I think we can probably figure out how to make you all handlers, but is that going to be enough to take over the others? I have a feeling that we're going to need Malachi to figure that one out.
Yeah, I've got an idea about that.
Okay. So Malachi, tell me what your idea is
Yeah.
here.
So I think that what we can do is if we can get enough spice, we can take the spice to become handlers, and then give the spice to the zombies that we are controlling, so that they can become handlers. So we're becoming handlers of handlers.
Okay. So let me have you. I think this is an appropriate thing. Let's see. There's some weapons. So I want you to roll lore for me.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm kind of quick doing some of this. And so what's happening now is you find some of the spice, find the location of the Spice Depot. You're trying to essentially unleash the power of the spice to create the chaos to give you, Lee, the opening to want to do. Does that seem okay?
Because Spice just wants to be free.
Fair enough.
I'm behind this plan.
Okay. So let's start Malachi.
Okay. I rolled a 10 plus 2 lore is 12.
Perfect. So you will do that. It doesn't seem like the spice, when you give it to them, does much. Like, they don't control each other, but it does cause a disruption amongst them. And what is it like when you take this horrible, as Maria described it, rot-smelling and tasting crystals?
So I think that what happens...
Imagine it's like Pop Rocks.
Yeah.
Okay?
So I think that what happens is whenever you pick it up, it's like a rotten bog smell. And you put it into your mouth, and it starts to pop, and the gases that are emitted, it almost is like sickly sweet. You know, it becomes that, you know how sometimes rotten stuff will smell kind of sweet too?
Oh, yeah.
And it starts to smell a little bit like that and taste like that. And it's not that terrible. You know, maybe this might be okay. Maybe you need to do this more often. Yeah.
Oh, good. It's addictive, too.
Yeah.
And it will expand your mind. You're not trained. None of you are trained in this. So it does immediately cause that kind of chaos, and these things start moving around, and that kind of chaos will spread to other encampments, because you're just in one section by the sort of the depot for this stuff, and that starts creating this chaos. And I'm assuming, Painless, that you are increasing the chaos here.
Yeah. Do I have my companions with me? Because if I do, I am just gonna have them start murdering the other handlers.
So yeah, it's just start create some damage here. And Christo, you are going to use your firebrand to essentially cause damage here. So this is with your anarchist cookbook. And
right, I'm going to try and take out the cook center.
Okay. So I think that this is going to be force for this. I will say that you will have advantage from the anarchist cookbook and from the chaos that Painless and everyone is creating. And if you need to, I suspect that Jane can help.
Okay. So you're saying fiercely assault? Is that what I'm doing with?
Yes. Roll force.
Okay. Advantage. Select. Reroll. Wow. I got a 5, 5, and a 6.
Perfect. So you get to pick 2 off of that list. I'm going to say that if you pick the inflict savage harm, then that's going to cause this destruction of a main depot for the spice. What would be your other pick?
Yeah, no, so that'll definitely be one of them. And my force is a 0, by the way, so it was very good that I got a good roll like that.
That was a good roll, yes. Avenue of escape is clear.
Yeah, I like that one. You pick 4. So I scavenge. So you're saying I inflict savage, terrifying harm on the.
That's what. That has to be one of your picks.
That's what it was. Okay, and
Yep.
then
And you pick one more.
and then you get to choose one.
Yeah.
You know, is this going to be the end of an era?
Yeah.
Okay, then is everybody okay if I don't choose the escape avenue is clear?
Yeah.
I'm thinking that this could be like a big glorious death for Lee. And I have an idea how I want that to happen also. But so
Okay.
So then I'll say that we scavenge something. We get information from our foes.
Okay. So your family will have 1 data effectively is what you're putting forward there. Okay. So there's chaos. You've disrupted, a good maybe a good quarter of the forces have been disrupted by this, giving you the opportunity to move into this place where the spice is stored. You've brought the chemicals together. Give me the big epic scene here, Lee.
So the basically, I guess I created sort of a napalm, and so it just spread like, through the cook center and took all of that out and everything around it. And unfortunately, Lee was staggering out, but it was a little too close, having issues with the fuse and whatnot. And so Lee got very badly burned. And his last thing is he's going to take an overdose of the spice, basically, and use it to handle as many of the deathless that are nearby and put on a last dance, basically.
Okay. So there is this chaos of it's Burning Man, but it's Burning Men. And
Yes.
the dance and the revelry and the pyrotechnics go up, and they go in even as you do this great dance, dancing zombies. Yes, this great circle. You will be able to kind of cut/hide your way out. Jane, Painless, Malachi be able to get out. Even as that sort of camp goes up. It causes a major disruption to the Deathless Legion. It destroys their main stockpile, and they are forced to fall back. They are not destroyed, but they are put back on their heels, and they will fall back to the edges of the settlements. There will be that sort of burned out land where the villages were, and a massive sort of scorched area where the Dance of the Damned occurred. And people will talk about that for years to come.
Yeah, I'm picturing Thriller just on a massive scale.
Awesome. We're gonna stop there. We will take up with the fallout from that. We'll talk about the turning of the ages and all of that stuff. We'll get to those. We'll do that at the start of next session, and we'll move on to another age, which is just moving slightly forward in time. Sherry?
Can I say that I managed to get a couple of the Janes and John Doe's zombies away from the death list so that we could use them for research?
Perfect. That sounds good to me. Okay. Yeah, especially since you weren't involved in sort of the tearing down there. That seems great. So is that cool with you guys? That seemed like a reasonable place to stop?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that seems good.
I would like to take a few minutes and do Roses and Thorns, if you guys don't mind. And this can be about how I ran it, about how the play went, about the system mechanics, things like that. And I will go first. I wish I had taken time during the week. I know, as Maria pointed out, that James had redone the gear rules, but I don't like changing things in midstream too much, so I didn't go to those. I will take a look at those before next session and see if they're easy to convert over from where we're at. I will make the conversion, and we'll take care of that. So that was a thing I should have done. Since I did see him mention it, I should have followed up on that. So that would be my thorn for myself. Stephen, thorn?
So I think we've already talked about it a little bit. There's a lot of moving parts in this, and for me, it's a little bit of a struggle. And I think this really shows up in the online play. So, for example, it's difficult to keep track of the family sheet with all the moves on it and everything happening, and then the character sheet with all the moves on it, and then you have the basic moves and you have the family moves. So there's just a little bit too much right now for me to figure it out. Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I think it's a game that benefits from face-to-face play and having a physical presence and pieces. Online play isn't adding isn't making it easier.
I think the part that I've just picked up on is that I can take the family sheet and the family playbooks and set them aside, and then just keep the character and the basic moves for whenever we're zoomed in. But when we're zoomed out, then I can swap those out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maria?
It's less of a thorn and more like I'm still trying to grok how to handle the whole zooming in, zooming out thing, because even though we were technically zoomed in for the entirety of the session, we were still doing things very quickly. Like we're not focusing on specific scenes as much, which makes sense for the type of game this is. So it's a bit of changing my mindset to figure out, okay, how do I imagine this? If it was a TV series, for example, how do I imagine this playing out in my mind?
It's almost like there's zoom, and then there's zoom out a little bit, and then there's zoom out, big meta thing.
Yeah. And yeah, that's what that's mainly why I joined, because I want to try to wrap my head around the whole idea of the various levels of zooming in and out.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good observation.
Yeah.
Chris?
Is I was going to ask, is zooming out, is that almost like, so if I'm trying to think of it like a movie, would that be maybe when you've got the scene where the camera's farther back and you're doing montages in some ways, and maybe a narrator doing a voiceover of what's happening?
Yeah.
We were preparing for the battle, and we sent out scouts ahead of time, and so on and so forth.
Or even like a highlight reel of a Game of Thrones episode. He did this in this place.
Oh, okay.
And then he did this in this place, and he did this in this place. That level is interesting to me because I've run games at that, and we're gonna touch on that more next time, where you get to make some determinations about your family, and we'll kind of do those in between things that should set some stuff up. That's what I'm hoping it'll feel like.
My thorn, of course, is my connectivity, because it's been a nightmare. I've been like juggling between different devices to try and make this work, because this hotel has absolutely no connectivity, which is it just drives me absolutely crazy. So I'm actually on hotspots, but that's...
I've had a guy play who was on a phone where it looked like like a Vimeo video kind of continually turning. So I've seen worse. Sherry?
Yeah, so
Oh, go.
No, that's it.
All right, Sherry.
Um, I will say that the little inheritance thing kind of really threw me off, because to me it makes sense that every character would inherit something from the family. So I just assumed. And then I felt really bad because I was like, oh, my character can do this and this and this. And I'm like, no, my character can't do that. And now I don't know how to buy the ability to do that, so I'll trade a bunch of companion points for it. So anyway, I felt a little caught off. But in some ways that was me not reading it closely enough. So.
But does it have to be you, or can it be a companion you? You could say, hey, you, go heal this person?
Right. Yeah, and I think that because I hadn't picked out that it couldn't be me, I had sort of invested my explanation in something. So that's the inflexibility of my brain right there. So boo on me, thorns for me.
Actually, I did exactly the same thing.
Oh, good. Thank you, Stephen. I feel so much better.
Yeah. And I didn't catch on to it until Lo started talking about it, and I was like, "Oh, I did the same thing. Look at that."
So,
let's
yeah.
let me go to Rose's.
Okay.
So I really like the way he's phrased the diffuse move in this.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting. I like the way it's framed. I think it fits with the situations we've got. I don't know what it is about that, but I really like the way that's framed. I especially like it because it has the multiple approaches within it with the different stats, and I'm always a fan of those kinds of things, where you get some variability on choices. So, I dig that. That's something I'll say about the system. And I love it conceptually. I like it, and I like the world that we've got set up. So. Stephen, Roses?
So I really like the concept of this game. It's sort of like a microscope game, but with more details about the individuals, sort of. And I really like that, or at least the way you're running it, it comes off that way. So yeah, I think once I get my brain wrapped around it, I think it'll be really good. I'm really excited.
Okay. Maria?
This is more of last session, but I really like the map building of this game. It's like the way, like, basically we have three lists, and then we pick one thing from each list and we put it on the map, and that I think is great.
Yeah, it's a neat system, and it works.
Yeah.
Chris?
I kind of like the fact that at the end of each era, we could have some sort of, your character can dramatically die. I don't know why, that you can sort of like punctuate the end of an era if you position it right. And I think that can be appealing.
So by the way, did you see, I think you get a death move, is that right?
Yes.
Oh.
I have a death move?
Death move?
It's on your player sheet next to harm.
Death move.
Look at us all
there
scrambled
you
to
go.
see what our death move is.
No.
When you
I don't want to
die.
die.
Oh, I missed it. I just wanted to die anyway. I thought it was going to
when
be
you
fun.
mark
Cool
off your
death,
dead box.
I'm curious what the
Mark off-
Firebrand's death move is. So
Wait, so what? Yeah, can somebody? I don't have it open.
Sure,
Can somebody read
it's-
to me what
Okay.
it is?
when you mark your dead box, your death becomes a rallying point for those who see you as a martyr. Say who they are and what your death inspires them to do. I mean, I guess the obvious thing is like burn the entire Deathless Legion, but but I guess you pick.
What do you say, Chris?
Yeah, no, I'd say it's the sort of thing of, because I think the way my family would interpret what happened is that, you can do great things and not give up your art. So I was an artist to the end.
Very nice.
Right.
It's
So
inspiring more
I did a
people to
great.
do more art.
So I carried it through. I did my best art in my last moments, and it was huge. I had a sound and light show effectively.
And what does that inspire people to do?
more suicide
Yeah,
dances.
so this is the end of the tiers. Sorry, what?
More suicide dances, she said.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it will inspire them to do because we're at the end of an era, so it's going to inspire a lot of people to do what.
Yeah. Well, we can check in with that beginning of the next session
Yeah.
if you'd like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably. Well, I don't want
Thank
to.
you.
Maybe I'll try and think of something over before and like give you a heads up before, so that
Okay.
you might be
Sounds
able to
good.
incorporate it.
Sherry, you get last word of roses.
You know, I think in one way, what you said about the moves was right on. These moves, though they're not at the sort of super personal you level, the character moves are some of the best written and most, like, when you hit them, I go, yeah, that's a satisfying set of choices for this situation. I really like those character moves. And I think the problem is that I liked all the moves, which is why, of course, I'm crying great tears because I didn't get my inheritance move. So there you go. But you know me. And in fact, it's like all of the pieces and the things I can have, I really like. And I think that is the thing is once I adjust my sense of how the story's moving to the scope that they're working at, like getting that focus in at the right zoom level, as you say, this will be exactly right.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm happy. We got through it. There were little bumps and starts there. I again apologize for the phone calls and the weirdness there, but thank you very much for all being tolerant super players. I'm going to stop recording now.